the biggest game that I think, if I've analyzed it correctly, the biggest game I think you can play is to fulfill your life's purpose. I think that's the biggest game you can play. And everything, every decision that you make outside of that should be contributing to that overall end goal, right? And maybe it's something bigger than that for you, right? But for me personally, as far as I could think, that is going to be the biggest game that I possibly can play, and the biggest game that I think is worth playing, right? Which is why I take the actions that I take every single day, right? So like I said, the biggest game for me is to fulfill my purpose, right? And I said this time and time again on this podcast, but I'll go ahead and say it again. My purpose is to inspire, empower, and educate the ones around me and of my influence, right? And by doing that, I must figure out a vehicle that would allow me to go ahead and do that, right? So maybe like I said, maybe the biggest game for you is your purpose, right? What is the vehicle that is going to help you fulfill, or what are the vehicles that are going to help you fulfill your purpose, your life, your greater life's purpose? What are going to be the vehicles? So I'll give you an example. One of the vehicles for me is going to be doing this podcast. Creating a personal brand is part of my vehicle of fulfilling my purpose, right? Along with that would be maybe taking care of my girlfriend, or taking care of my family, or um, uh, yeah, I was essentially you kind of understand where I'm kind of going with that, but nonetheless, the biggest game is to fulfill your purpose, right? So every action that you take should be, I'm speaking for myself, should be aligned with that, of course, right? Um, Give me 1 second. Obviously, my purpose is going to extend a lot more. My life's purpose is going to extend a lot more than the purpose I tell you right now and then. But I just wanted to give you something to go ahead, for you to go ahead and take, right? But yeah. So like I said, maybe one of the games that you want to go ahead and play. This is a game that I would definitely recommend for you to go ahead and play. Maybe the type of game that you want to play is you being successful, right? But if you want to play that game, which I would recommend every single person watching this to go ahead and play, because it's a game worth playing, right? You must break that down for yourself, right? What does that look like to you? What does that success look like to you? What are the smaller games that I can play that would contribute to that bigger game, right? That's going to be the main question for today's podcast. What are the smaller games that I can play in the present moment or in the daily that will eventually lead me to the goals that I go ahead and have for myself, the bigger games that I have for myself? And everything, and here's the thing, once you begin to conceptualize and break it down for yourself, you have a lot more structure than the average person. And I feel like if you are able to refer back to this and have it all in one spot, you're going to have a complete advantage over most people. Because most people don't have it organized. They have it within their mind. They have it within their thoughts, and maybe their mind is not as cluttered as yours is. But I would say for the most part, I think it's a worthy decision for you to go ahead and write these things down for yourself, right? And you can kind of create like almost like a big tree map, essentially, if you know what I'm trying to say, right? Essentially, something at the top, obviously, almost like a value hierarchy, essentially, and then you're going to have these things that branch out of that, right? And then you're gonna have more branches and things like that, of course. But you must be able to ask yourself the question of what games do you want to go ahead and play, what are the bigger games you want to go ahead and play, and then fulfill in all those missing points. Because I feel like a lot of people, they want certain, they want to partake in certain games, but their daily actions aren't aligned with that. So like, you see what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense for them to go ahead and to say that. So like I said, maybe you're one of those people right now. Maybe you say you want to partake in a certain game, but your actions are not aligning, right? And if they're not aligning, right? If the tree map doesn't make any sense for you, right? Then you actually have an opportunity to go ahead and take action on that, right? Instead of being the person who has no structure and no clarity within that, but yet wants this and is living in complete delusion. Does that make sense, right? You want to avoid yourself from being that person as much as you possibly can. So with that being said, write it out for yourself. What does it look like? What are the bigger games that you want to go ahead and play? What are the smaller games that you must play that are going to contribute to the bigger game that you want to go ahead and play, right? I've said that a few times now, but I want to emphasize and kind of hopefully give you some imagery of what that looks like within my mind. So when I start speaking about these things, what pops into my mind is like I said, exactly that. Like I said, branching down and like I said, seeing if there's any missing spots that are not exactly aligned, right? That's what it comes down to, right? Um, So like I said, right, the for me the biggest game is to fulfill my purpose, right? Part of me fulfilling my purpose is to go ahead and build this podcast, of course, right? That's going to be part of my personal brand, which is going to be part of fulfilling my purpose, right? And like I had mentioned, I'll give you another one. Let's see. Let me think of another one. Let's just say I want to be a person who has a lot of status, right? And one thing you'll see with this as well is if you're able to be very, very clear and make the correct decisions within your life, you'll begin to see that a lot of the bigger games can lead you back to a certain action. For example, right? If I want a status, I want to be successful, and I want to fulfill my purpose. Right? Those are going to be all three big things that I think a lot of people would say are part of some of their bigger games that they want to go ahead and play. The one thing that would be common within all those is pursuing this podcast and doing and filming it and editing as much as I possibly can and building it until I have a lot of traction, right? That would be the almost like a keystone habit within pursuing all those goals, if you know what I'm saying. But like I said, maybe hopefully you have those for yourself, right? Maybe you have three or four big dreams that you are big games that you want to go ahead and play, but yet there's one daily action that you can go ahead and do that's going to contribute to those eventually, right? Like I said, hopefully you have that for yourself, man. That's what I'll say.